Hey, this is Matt. Once again, welcome back to another review. This is another paid request, this time for Guillermo. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting pretty much any type of reviews or commentaries, topics, reactions, out of the blueness, whatever, feel free to send them either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for... What the hell was that weird noise I made? I went, huh? Oh, it's the fake blood! It's fake blood! Like my body went, huh. It's alright, Matt. It's fake blood. But this is a 2017 film that is a fake documentary. I would not call this a horror film. I think if you go into it as a horror film, people will be disappointed. I would think of it more as a thriller. And it was on Tubi TV for free. And I thought it was rather good. It's small. It's subtle. Subtle in the fact of it's not some big found footage where, everyone, it's not like typical found footage, which I actually found refreshing. It does play itself out like it is a documentary. In fact, I would read reviews on the film where they thought, is this a real documentary? And the fact that they're unsure about it actually shows the positive aspects of this film because it is done in a believable manner. I thought it was very believable. I thought that the two leads, Rob and Mike, they play these two directors who film a lot of horror movies. And then one day they did a video, an instructional video, about these two guys disposing a dead body. And the video is very reminiscent of a scene they had done in this horror comedy where they say it's Fargo meets Dumb and Dumber that they made and ran the circuit for a while. And again, sometime later they got a video, and it seemed like a very creepy video about again, these two disposing a body and having this conversation at a hardware store just like the movie. And then the two directors are like, well, let's make a documentary about movie violence and the difference between real violence and movie violence. And it's a touchy subject, but I like that number one, it's not preachy. Number two, it goes to a motif that I agree with, that no, it doesn't. It does not create violence. But, but, it could change how the guys who kill behave. Meaning that if someone's that mentally ill, that fucked up, or that evil, yeah, they just see a movie and go like, maybe I'll do it that way. But it's not the movie's fault. It's the person was fucked up to begin with. It's kind of the line in Scream. Movies don't create psychos. Movies have psychos get more creative. And that's the thing. If it wasn't a movie, it'd be a book. It'd be a piece on the news. It'd be something else. And I do like that a good chunk of the characters feel the same way. And I appreciate that. And so it does give an interesting detail on the topic. And I'm actually surprised that we're able to reference with movie clips films like the real life incidents that happened that were blamed on movies. The Dark Knight shootings in Colorado, Child's Play 3, Natural Born Killers, American Psycho, among others. I think also on Nightmare on Elm Street, and they show clips of each of these films. And the first third of the mockumentary is the two going out exploring the difference between the two, and which is more responsible. Is it more responsible to show the impact and the gruesomeness, or is it more irresponsible to show little blood? Like you look at The Dark Knight, and people get shot during the Joker bank robbery, but there's no blood. Same with, they actually show RoboCop 2014 and how fucking neutered that is, where people get shot and you see nothing. But then if you look at something like Reservoir Dogs, you see how gruesome it is. Like someone's been shot and they're bleeding, the agony they go through. And someone even says, yeah, I think, it's actually a bit more responsible to show the gruesomeness that when someone gets shot, it's not a fun thing. But at the same time, someone even goes, how do they put it? They go, your job is to make something entertaining. And I found this kind of like interesting, just you're talking about this subject, which is a real subject, but you're doing it in an entertaining way where you have two leads who are not, they're very believable in their roles. It's fairly well edited. You get some nice clips for references. You get moments where like they go to a gun range and they go to a dojo and oh well that's how a real fight happens. Wow, it was discombobulated so easily. Oh, that's how the gun range, like this gun, like there's no way there's no way Nick Cage just shoot those two guns and face off. There's no way, because by the time you shoot one or two times, your hand is like completely sore. It's gun woo, man. I think that's what someone said. Or like they talked with this guy who got into a real fight and he actually got stabbed in the stomach with a poker. And he didn't realize until later, like, what the hell? And then he shows a scar that looks like a real scar. And that's what I mean, they do little details like that that make the documentary more believable. And everyone in it have this believable nature. There's no one that feels like they're acting. There's no one that feels like they're just uh, no one that seemed fake. And so that makes the documentary aspect that much more palatable and believable. And of course, as they go on, things take a turn. But not quite what I expected. And like I said, it's more subtle in the fact that it doesn't go into a third act found footage, camera shaking around, not in the least. It doesn't have the typical found footage ending, which I appreciate. And that's what I mean. It's to call this a horror film would be misleading. That's why it's like a documentary, true crime, like a little bit of a thriller aspect. And to me, it was also about the breakdown of a friendship, which that was one of the more interesting aspects to me about how you see this friendship between these two guys break down. Because one is being the decent of the group and one's being the dumbass of the group. And I thought it was, again, it went at a good enough pace. It was only an hour and 20 some minutes long. The acting is very solid and believable. A lot of the steps they took, there'd be times in between that you have like either reenactments or other things happen, and they have this pretty decent synthesizer music playing, which I liked. Let me go into spoilers. That's the better way for me to do it. It's on Tubi TV. It's not an action-packed movie. It's not. Do not go into it thinking it's a horror film with kill and death and or typical found footage. It's not that at all. Which actually did. Its subtleness, I thought, made it a bit creepier, a bit more believable, and turned out for the better. But this is coming from a guy that's seen over 100 fucking found footage or fake documentary films. So this one, I said I actually rather liked. But let's see. spoilers starting now. They want to look more into the difference between real life and movie violence, so they know a buddy of theirs who had this consultant on a film dealing with gangster organized crime, and the consultant seemed a bit more knowledgeable than what you would think. So they contact the guy, and like they alter the guy's voice, they pixelate his face, they alter his name, they talk to the guy. I don't know, just how believable the actors were made it seem a bit creepier, where you have the guy in the backseat talking with them about his history, like tells a story about these two people and how shot him in the head. You know, in a movie it's a big deal when that happens, but in real life it just went quick. And just how nonchalant the guy was. And you see like how the faces of the two directors, like, you know, they can't say anything, but they're fucking freaked out. And they tell this other story, that he tells this other story about this sister being taken, this guy's sister being taken and killed. And I said, I thought the reason I said it didn't go as the direction I thought it was going to go, because we never get back to that instructional video of disposing the body, the video that was sent to them through the email, which was the instigator for this. I thought at some point it was going to go back to that, and that gets kind of forgotten. So wait a minute, this is still... Was that fake? Did those guys mean what they attempted? I always thought it was going to go back to that instructional video, which is this, and it never does. So I guess it really was just there to instigate this investigation into... But yeah, I thought the investigation would also be like, who are these guys? Were they faking? Were they just bullshitting? And that's not the direction they went in. And then they went in this other direction. So it's not what I expected, but it was still decently interesting. And it does play off the what is real, what is not real, because they show like reenactments of what the guy was telling, and then it'll cut, and it's the directors filming the reenactments. So it's like, okay, this is, you know, what's real, what's not. Yeah, I thought the way that was done was kind of interesting, unexpected. Where you have this very serious moment, and hey, cut. Okay, great job, guys. We filmed the reenactment for this one. It also plays to the idea of this being a documentary that was finished, and this is the process of doing the documentary as well as what really happened. And they even find out the sister, the victim's brother, and they go to see him. I'm thinking this is a bad idea. I like that Mike is the guy who's like, why are we doing this? Why do we need to do this? But Rob's the guy who's like, hey, we could do this, and it'll help out. I was saying, you know, you could tell that Mike is the guy that you draw more towards, that he's more likable, and he's the guy that has more common sense, while Rob is the guy who's a bit more driven in making the film. Which, yes, I do think this is a fake film. I never thought this was real. But it does a pretty decent job of making people believe in that. And like, they talk to the guy and the whole emotional aftermath between real life and movie after someone dies, and Rob brings it up, and you tell Mike is pissed, and he goes to the back, listen, I gotta leave. And then Rob goes after him, and Mike's like, what the fuck do you do? Why you bring it up? What are you doing? This is a film. It's not worth it. And he's rightfully so pissed. And of course they get kicked out, and they're going back, and they get the court case audio recordings, and they find out that the one guy they were talking to the consultant John, he was the person who killed that sister, and not just boom, but raped and tortured her. And because this Rob guy's an idiot, and that's the thing also with movies and a lot of stuff. If you want to be realistic, do you employ a character doing stupid fucking things? Because that is reality. Many people in reality do a lot of stupid fucking things. But when you employ that in a film, we get pissed. Oh, that guy's fucking stupid. That wouldn't happen. But at the same time, we know a lot of stupid people are in real life. So in a way, it would happen. So then you go into this thing like, okay, well, that would happen in real life because that person's fucking stupid. There's a lot of stupid people. So it's a hypocritical for us to then go, well, you can't put that in a movie. But you want to be realistic, but you can't have a character that's fucking stupid. It's this thing where, number one, it's going to be different for each film, for each movie, how much you like the character, how much you grew to enjoy the character, or where it leads to, how it leads to it. If the rest of the movie's good enough that you're like, okay, yes, it's realistic, but then we also have this difference that we know it's a movie. We know it's fake, so then you able to in a way still think differently than if you the same thing happened in real life. So it's one of those things that you see a dumb thing in a movie, do you get mad at it? Oh, that would never happen. But then no, that would happen because there are dumb people that have done even dumber fucking things in real life. So again, gets that question: when do you excuse it in a movie and when do you not? It's just one of those things. It's a hard thing for me to answer. And if there's a way to, is there some type of hypocritical stance about that? This I was fine with because it served the story, and the guy narrating it admits that this was the dumbest thing he did. This was stupid. And it's telling the story that really does lead to the breakup of this friendship. Because Rob, who's very adamant to continue the story, he calls the guy in and accidentally says the guy's real name. And the guy's like, "What'd you say?" And then the guy goes, "Listen, I think you should just end this and take what you got and don't go further into this." And then they gotta tell the cops, and they have to stay in a motel. And this segment I thought was interesting to me because it shows like 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 9 days in a hotel. And you see this is definitely where you see the biggest breakdown of the friendship. Because Mike, he didn't do this. He didn't cause this. He wasn't the one that pissed off, the one victim's brother. He wasn't the one that called this fucking John guy again. And Mike's ready to get married, and unexpected expenses, and just get more and more pissed, which I don't blame him. Like, Mike is the guy I could identify with, tremendously identify with. And I think there's a lot of people that will see this film and be very bored because it's not action, it's not a lot of chases, it's not found footage where it goes crazy at the end, this big third act. It's not big, it's the opposite of big. It's a very simple, subtle, but to me a little bit of a creepy aspect that I thought was the right fit for the story. I think that's a lot of the problems that with a lot of found footage or whatever, we gotta go big. And then it becomes like crazy CGI, or it's gotta be the typical, the camera's moving this way, you get dizzy and then it falls to the ground. No, I thought this was a better way for it ended. Granted, it's gonna be more simple, and people are gonna be like, oh, that's it? That's what it was all for? But to me, it made more sense where, big spoilers, the cops say, hey, you guys are done. Looks like the guy we were looked at his home, looks like he left. They can't stay in the hotel forever, they come back. Sometime later comes by. The cop's like, hey, we found this dead body with a post-it note. Post-it note has your name on it. The dead body is the victim's brother. And you come to find out that earlier in the film, there was a break-in into Rob's home, and they thought it was John, the killer. No, it was the victim's brother. Realizing, wait, who is this guy? I don't know how he knew where the guy lived. I don't know if he gave him like a business card or something that had his address. But I guess somehow the victim's brother knew where the guy lived, so broke into it, stole a post-it note, which he didn't realize until much later. And then that victim's brother tried to find the guy who killed his sister. A fight ensued, and the victim's brother died. His body was found, and John killed him and fucking left somewhere else. And then you have this thing at the very beginning where Rob is trying to call his friend Mike, could you pick up? I'm sorry. That's the final scene. It goes back to that, and it makes more sense where the friendship is now done. Mike is like, fuck this, I'm not dealing with this guy anymore. There's supposed to be a documentary about real versus fake violence because you pushed with the brother character, making him pissed off, because you called this John guy a second time, all this stuff. But you're the one that wanted to see this victim's brother in the first place. Now it led to this guy being dead. And then you have those words again from the killer. I want to get the quote right. I'm trying to find the quote. Do you make people go out and kill? I doubt it. But do you change how the guys who kill people behave? Yeah, I would say so, yeah. So that's the thing, is that no, they didn't call, more to Rob. He didn't cause this guy to kill in the first place. That he was an evil guy. But because leading this, you made the brother realize that this John guy was out of jail when he thought was in jail, and seek out, find your post-it note, do all this stuff. And now that happened, and Mike wants nothing to do with you because he wants to get married and all this, and it's like, I don't blame the guy. I just thought, okay, that was a nice little ending that made sense within the story. That didn't feel like it was a cheap shot. That didn't feel like it was, we have an out-of-the-blue action scene, or we have out-of-the-blue... Because, okay, the typical would have been the killer, oh, there's the camera, POV, the killer goes after, the face is pixelated, oh, no, I'm like, okay, that'd be typical. I'm glad it didn't go the typical route. To me, again, this makes it a bit more believable, different from the pack, to be on its own 2 feet, and overall, more interesting. So I did quite like Fake Blood. I don't have a lot of issues with it. I could do without the reference to Cannibal Holocaust at one point, because I hate that fucking movie. I think it's just a little thing. I think another movie could have been referenced. Thankfully, it doesn't show the real animal killing. Thankfully, just shows one of the special effects. I don't know how they did that, but still, yeah, I'm not a fan of that movie. Fuck that movie. I did maybe a little bit more into that video at the beginning, that instructional video. Like maybe them looking into it and find out that it's a fake and they're fans. Oh, okay, I'm glad. But then it leads into them, well, wait a minute, But what if it wasn't? What if this wasn't fake? What if this was real? What if these were two people really doing it? I wish maybe a little bit more of that. I just uses the background noise. But other than that, yeah, I didn't have a lot of issues with it. Like I said, I think some people will be like, "Oh, it's boring and nothing happens." But yeah, I thought it was a nice little interesting story with two pretty decent lead characters, performance-wise. You're supposed to think Rob is an idiot because he's doing the wrong things. Mike is definitely the more relatable one. But they fit in the roles that they're trying to portray. And like I said, to me, I look at it as a decent look at a breakdown of a friendship. I mean, there's more to it than that, but yeah, I thought, decent little film. Not something that I would watch over and over again, but fairly decent. So, I didn't. Little bits of creepiness. I wouldn't say I was ever scared. I don't think it's a scary movie. I don't think it's a suspenseful movie. There's little moments of creep factor, but I mean, nothing. Again, I don't think of it as a scary film in the slightest. But I do think it's, a decent film that brings up some interesting topics, and to do his job to make it seem believable, I thought it did a fairly efficient job of that. So with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.